Hi, I'm Mike Gambardella, and welcome to the newest episode of Pat's Latest. We've got a few different things to run through after a short break for the channel, including what could be Boston's new mafia, a couple of second-year players for the Patriots who could see big-time booms in year two, and could we see a Super Bowl champion joining the Patriots? We start first with potentially the new fraternity of head coaches in Boston. Yes, Joe Mazzulla has invited Mike Vrabel to go and join Celtics practice. And Joe, who actually I attended high school with at Bishop Hendricken in Warwick, Rhode Island, and actually he played at West Virginia while I worked at the Big East, so some familiarity there. And he has really become the preeminent head coach in the NBA, especially up and coming at this point after winning a championship with the Celtics. And if you ever watch some of his press conferences or address to the media, podcasts or otherwise, you'll notice a very similar tone and take as Bill Belichick. And I think that's where that was learned. As we grew up, that's what we saw for 25 years, really, was Bill Belichick, very tongue in cheek, never really showing a lot of emotion. Joe often with that, nobody cares, we're all going to die. You're not invited to my funeral. It's honesty while also covering up, being able to tell the whole story, right? You can address what's going on, but you don't have to give of that. I loved his line about when asked about pressure. He's like, there is no pressure here. This is life. You only get one. Everybody lives and you die, and you figure it out. There's no pressure. It's the job you're hired to do, and it falls back to the do your job. So, with Missoula inviting Vrabel to the Celtics practice, Missoula was actually quoted by Justin Turpin saying, the four people that have these jobs, and referring to the Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox, and the Bruins as well, really Boston's big four here, for however long they have it, there's got to be a brotherhood there. And that's the term that Missoula used, was brotherhood. So maybe not Bill's Mafia or not, the made men or the sports fraternity. Maybe it is the Boston Brotherhood. He went on to say, we're all carrying a responsibility to compete at a high level and bring championships to the city. And that's something each of these teams have done all since 2011, when the Bruins last won, and everybody else earlier since then. But that's what everybody's chasing here. And that's what Mike Vrabel is chasing, and getting back to that again, doing it as a player and now having a chance to do it as a head coach. And it is very cool to see Boston starting to galvanize yet again, and seeing that start with their head coaches. And maybe it is not a bad thing to see Boston's made men in the big four, if you will, or the Mount Rushmore, however we want to really posit this. But I think at the end of the day, it's a positive for the Patriots and Boston sports overall. Transitioning over to the latest rumors and betting odds, are seeing former Super Bowl champion Zack Baun, the middle linebacker who really exploded onto the scene for the Philadelphia Eagles, having a career year under defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, really just going off and setting the tone for that defense. As you saw in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs had no answer, right? They were constantly facing pressure from that front four and not finding a lot of space to operate. Vaughn, obviously, as an all-pro, on top of being the Super Bowl champion this year, had 110 solo tackles, 177 overall, also had 3 sacks, 3 fumble recoveries, and 2 picks. He is expected to sign a free agent deal with an average annual value of around $15 million. So it puts the Patriots, with the team with the most money, obviously, in free agency, at the top of that list. That's where I think this betting line is coming from. Now, the headline is grabbing because you see it, and it's, a very talented linebacker, but I'm not sure both the scheme and the fit that Mike Vrabel is looking for, where he really wants those fast, do-it-all edge rushers and, jack of all trade linebackers, where Baun really is that presence in the middle, which really, Juwan Bentley does already. So Baun does have more fluidity and be able to coverage as well. But I think the price, one, probably will get too high. Hopefully what Vrabel and Wolf are saying, what the scheme will fit, what you get bang for your buck. And also, I don't expect Philadelphia to let this man go after they were able to do this. Now, again, Howie Roseman can only pay so many people, but I think after this person set the tone for their defense and really was a leader on that side of the ball, it would be very difficult to see him making it away from the friendly confines of Philly. Someone who will keep the friendly confines of Foxborough and seems to be doing it in the offseason here as well is Drake Maye. And it's double entendre day, if you will, because it's Drake Maye trains as both he was in Foxborough training on his own volition, deciding to go and do that. But it's also the Drake Maye hype train, and I think it's all aboard at this point. We've seen the slow roll and, the media week, all the appearances he did during the Super Bowl, and now what he's now following up, the recruiting pitches, the free agent pitches, and now it's time to put the work in. And from what we saw of Drake Maye in year one was acquitting himself well, showing he can play at a really high level in spite of not having maybe the best talent in front of him, which gets people excited about this. What I think we're going to see more from Maye in year two is the leadership aspect. And don't be surprised to see that C on his chest this year. He is going to be a leader of this team. It's just whether Mike Vrabel sees that as a fit for a second-year player already, or if he wants to let it slow burn a little bit as well. But I think Drake Maye is doing all the right things, whether that's as a free agent pitchman, as it's a spokesman for the team, and now going and training. He was in Foxborough. Mike Reese, the ESPN reporter, put him there, had been working all last week and doing it out in the frigid temperatures of Foxborough, getting down into the 10s and 20s, and really starting to force himself into learning what it's going to take to play in Foxborough deep into December, January, and hopefully getting to February here as well. But again, Drake Maye, all in on this. Push your money in, as this guy is doing everything that is expected of him. You've heard it already that if the NFL draft included Drake Maye this year, he would be the shoo-in number one overall pick. It was just with the three top-heavy quarterbacks last year with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and now Drake Maye. The Patriots have to be patting themselves on the back to say, hey, we've at least got this guy. Now let's build out around him. And it's only going to be another 2.5 short weeks before you start to see those free agent deals start to be signed, whether the trade market starts to develop and seeing guys like Cooper Kupp, or if it's DK Metcalf or somebody else. There's going to be a lot of building around Drake Maye. So get on that hype train now. He's doing everything that he needs to do. The quote from his time in Foxborough last week was, he's there in New England, working out at Gillette Stadium, introduced to some of the most frigid weather in the region since the team drafted him. It's there, right? He wants to do this. And I think it's time to get excited about a second-year quarterback who is in line to take a big-time leap. We finish up today with some interesting comments coming out from Steve Smith, who has become a bit of a media personality and maybe in the news for some wrong things as well. Not going to hit on that. We're going to hit more on what he did say about Jalen Polk. Now, obviously, we know that there were big expectations for Polk, drafted in the second round. Patriots traded back, had the opportunity to get Ladd McConkey and decided not to do that, to go get Jalen Polk later. It did not pan out at all. It just did not, flat out. He did not perform. The numbers weren't there. He was not included in, the top 3 rotation. It just was not there for Jalen Polk in year one at all. Now, whether that's offensive scheme, offensive line, rookie, curve, whatever you want to call this, Jalen Polk has an opportunity in front of him. There's a new coaching staff. And Steve Smith actually went so far as to say this was not his fault. So maybe that there is a way to fix Steve Smith. Fix Jalen Polk. May want to fix Steve Smith as well. But for Jalen Polk, Steve Smith actually pointed to Tyquan Underwood, former Patriots wide receiver and wide receiver coach, as someone that Steve is obviously not very fond of as a coach, and saying it's not surprising at all that he went on to say many different things to just say that it's amazing that Jalen Polk even caught, a couple passes this year because the deck was stacked against him. Now, I'll take that with a big grain of salt because Steve does say some inflammatory things, as many other Steve A. Smiths that we've mentioned on the show as well. But it at least opens the door for some opportunity. We heard quotes from Drake Maye last week as well, talking about both Jalen Polk and Jamin Baker, the fourth round pick out of UCF, as well as guys that are going to step up for the Patriots this year. They will have the opportunity to do that. Now, this could be lip service from Drake Maye as well, doing the right thing. We talked about the media training is ingrained in this guy. He's a leader. He's saying the right thing. So, all that to say, perhaps there is a path forward for Jalen Polk to make an impact for this team. It will be very interesting to see how this wide receiver core shakes out with Kendrick Bourne at the top of that, Pop Douglas, and we saw some decent returns from Keyshawn Boutte as well. So that puts Polk and Baker at 4 and 5 on the depth chart right now. You're talking about big names, whether it's Kupp or Metcalf or Tet McMillan, coming in to take more spots. And is there another free agent wide receiver, whether Hollywood Brown, Darius Slayton, or someone further down the line that could further complicate the mix? Again, there's a path right now. We'll see what that looks like in the coming weeks. As always, thanks for joining us here on Pat's Latest. Make sure you subscribe for our channel, turn on notifications, get us in the comments, let us know who you think the Patriots should be going after and who's the best fit for Drake Maye at the end of the day, because he is the guy that is going to push this train forward. As always, thanks for joining us, and fight on, Foxborough.